Live in the Emotionally Healthy Moms Club. I have with me Brenda Schumann, and I'm just going to read her bio real quick to give you a glimpse of who she is. She's somebody I'm excited to talk about. I love her heart and what she's doing. Brenda has a master's degree in social work with 18 plus years in trauma and attachment treatment. She's a mom to grown daughters, an author, loves to empower people in their kingdom identity and purpose, and gets the privilege to love the hard children, teens, and women that God has entrusted her with as a missionary in Honduras. So welcome, Brenda. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm just excited to see what the Lord has for us today.
Yeah. So I guess just a little bit about like how did you get where you are? Like, a little bit of your story.
It honestly is it's just following the lead of God, right? And when you just follow the lead of God, I feel like I always say, like he just shifts you into exactly where you're supposed to be, and it's just like one step at a time, right? And so, actually, I was with someone yesterday. It's been 4 years that I've been down here in Honduras, and I'm between Honduras and the States. But right now, replacement is here in Honduras. And um, 4 years ago, I came down on a 20-day short-term mission trip with my daughter that I didn't even want to come on. Like I was like, the Lord said, go on a mission trip, and I'm like, no, like you must be mistaken. Like this is not the time, money. Like there, I can't take off of work. Like this, I had all the reasons not to come down here. And that
Mm-hmm.
short-term trip turned into another short-term trip, which then I actually started dating someone from down here. So coming down just for that experience of living down here and really just being part of the Honduran culture. I had no intention of doing missions or ministry. And in fact, at that point in my life, I probably wasn't even healthy enough to be like, I shouldn't have been. Like, I should not have been doing ministry at that point. So God always knows, right? And so I also needed that time to really just to get myself and my spirit healthy. And us, he ended up shifting us into ministry, both my partner and I. Um, and um, and here we are now, finally, after a number of shifts here. I'm here. He actually left, but I am and here in just a tiny little village. We have about 60 homes here on the side of a mountain and a community center. We serve. I always say we primarily serve kids, but honestly, we serve kids because they're in our house, in my house every day. It's kind of
Yeah.
like by default that we serve children. But really, my heart is for moms, for women and moms, and my heart's for kids too. But there's just something that pulls at my heart whenever we can watch a mom just kind of blossom into what God really created her to be, and
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and so that's where my passion is, although the children show up at my gate every day. So
Yeah, I think, yeah, I really resonate with that because like I originally went to school to be a teacher and I was like, yeah, I want to work with the kids and I want to see the impact and the change in the kids. But there was always this piece of like, but if I could get to their moms, if I could get to their parents, then it's like we're a generation ahead, and
right,
like if I can get to the moms, then I'm multiplying myself and I don't need to get to all the kids.
right,
Because they can get to
right,
their
right, right,
kids and they can get to their kids' friends instead of,
right.
um, I mean, like, yeah, the kids are valuable and it's important, but yeah, I just always had that pulling to like, but if I could get a generation ahead.
Right, right, right. And it's harder. I feel like it's so much harder with that generation. Kids are so much easier to
Yeah.
work with, just because they don't have as much stuff that comes with them as our moms do. Um,
Hmm.
so it's way slower work with moms than what we see with our kids. And sometimes we do see our kids going back to minister to their parents, like taking stuff home and ministering. And honestly, I don't care how moms get it. Like
Yeah.
if you get it through your kids, you get it through your kids. Like I can speak from experience. Like my daughter like saved me. I mean, obviously Jesus saved me, but you know what I mean? Like she, um,
Mhm.
just the light that she brought into my world changed my life. And, I, but I always, no matter how much amazing stuff we see happen with kids, my heart is always for that woman that, um, how do I say this? That I just know that God created for more, but who doesn't know that yet? You know, like
Yeah.
like I could change the generation of kids. We really can, and we've really seen it happen. But my heart still pulls at the mom, and more so because, like, you know what? Like God created her for more than this. God created her
Mhm.
without all of those wounds and the struggle and the strife. And um my heart really is for every woman to live exactly how God created them to live. And without all of that extra stuff that we place on ourselves and the enemy places on ourselves and other people place on us, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't think I'll not be wanting to work with moms, no matter how successful we are with our kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you see, like, the stuff that impacts women and is holding them back from who they're supposed to be? Like, is there really a difference between the states and Honduras in this teeny little village?
No, I mean, at the root, it's all the same, right? It's all the same. It's the
Mhm.
lies of the enemy that tell us, especially when we're that tell us, you know, things that, well, you're not good enough, or you know, you are damaged, or and it's the trauma that happens here. I feel like we have a little bit more trauma that happens here. There's definitely a spirit of oppression, you know, that oppression kind of mindset. It adds a whole extra layer that we have to work through. But you know, it's all the same tactics, right? Like it all goes down to the same thing of tell them that there's something wrong with them and let them believe that for the rest of their life. And
Yeah.
ours happens to be sometimes a little bit more, um, I don't know if I want to say more graphic in the trauma that we see, but it's just it's a different level. I feel like that we see in this village, and I'll just say like our village compared to other villages that other missionaries work in, our village is harder. It just is.
Mm.
Um, and I feel like that's true around the world, right? Like there's just pockets of places that are a
Yep.
little bit harder to live in, and to have one of them. But that doesn't mean that there's not hard things happening in the States either for people. So
Mhm.
I don't know if I answered your
Yeah.
question. I feel like I danced around your
Yeah, well,
question. I don't mean to do
no, I
that.
just think, like, it's so interesting that I don't know, I think culture kinda tells us that, like, the stuff we have, the car we drive, the house we live in, the clothes we wear, like, all of that sets us apart from all of those other people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, at the heart of it, we're all the same. Like, we're all
all,
struggling
all
with,
the same.
are we good enough? And do they love me? And do I have anything to bring? And, it's, yeah. So it's easier, like, in my mind, I think it's easier for people to think, like, I don't know. And maybe even like somebody had said to me yesterday, like, first world problem. And it's like, maybe sometimes we do that with our mental health. Like, we discount it as, oh, it's just a first world problem. Like, there's more important, and it's like, no, there's not anything more important. Like, that's the foundation of everything. It's the foundation of being human. Like,
Everything.
do I
Everything.
have value? Does somebody love me?
Mhm.
What am I here for?
For sure. I think I agree. I think that's the foundation. I think sometimes it's a little harder to figure that out here because of like I have a mom, for example, that we work really close with. We have for a while, and she's honestly become like family to me. So I cry. And she's made great progress. But you know what? The thing that changed for her when we changed is when we started to just excuse me employ her. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We started to just employ her to clean our building. That we believed in her enough and trusted her enough to clean our building. And that's when
Mhm.
we really started to see her mental health. She gave her, because they were a family that she was a mom that couldn't feed her kids. She just literally went hungry day after day after day. And I can't imagine what that feels like as a mom. I mean, I've had poor times in my life where, things were tough and I don't know how we paid our bills. Not like that, to see my kids not eat day after day after day. And I can't imagine what that does on
Yeah.
someone's mental health. And, so we would step in and give her some emergency things, but we just could not get a hold of health even doing that. And it was when we gave her a job that we
Yeah.
saw that she was like me as more than someone who just needs a handout. And
Yeah.
they trust me to come. That gives her value and that gives her worth. And that's when we saw her mental health shift.
Yeah. So I'm not just somebody that is valuable because they're willing to help me, but I'm valuable because I have something to bring.
Yeah, exactly. 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 I'm not the one. And
Yeah.
what we see with her now is now I sent her out. Like last week, we were home with COVID and she couldn't come in. And I was like, hey, go spend your hours just serving in the community. Like, go find someone that needs some help with something, go do it. And for someone that has always been the one that needs to receive, to be able to
Yeah.
be the giver in situations, and we've seen that on other scales as well with her, it like her like you can just see like the joy come into her life when she gets to be the giver, when those tables have turned and she's not the
Yeah.
one that always is the one needing something, but is the one that actually has something to offer. That's powerful for people, and I think that that's true for all of us, right? Like
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with my adult daughter last week, I think it was, and I was like, people's lives change when they tap into the purpose, when they tap into what they've been created to actually do. That's when we see the joy come in, and that's when we see mental health shift. We see them open up to be able to receive some of those. You know this with healing too, like that's touched my heart, healed. But a lot of times here, we can't even get people to this point of being able to receive healing until we've put some purpose in their life, until they can have some joy, until they can figure out that I actually have worth and value. And now I can step into my healing, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Because I think people can get so much to a state like they're so inward focused and can't see beyond themselves that like what would be the purpose of putting the work into getting healed?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not bringing anything anyway,
Right.
like what does it matter? So yeah, that totally makes sense that they need to have at least that belief that they're here for a reason.
Yeah. I think it brings hope.
And I love that, like that reason. And again, maybe like a first world mindset of like, oh, the reason has to be I'm going to have this big business or this big ministry. I'm going to do this, whatever. Like, no, as simple as having a purpose, I can go help somebody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do we hear, like, if you're depressed, like, look out, go see what you can do for somebody?
Right.
Well, why?
Right.
Because it's showing you, like, yeah, I have something to bring. I'm not just this pathetic puddle that needs people. Like,
Right.
I have something to
Right.
bring.
Right. It's that value thing again. Like I have a value to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I believe every woman, like every human, every woman, you're created in the image of God. So
Yeah.
you have something to bring,
Right.
period. Like,
In any
just,
situation, don't you feel? I feel like, and
mhm.
I'm just so passionate about this that like I don't care where you are in life. God created you from the very beginning with gifts and talents and a personality that's specific to the calling that He gave for you. And no matter where you are in life, those things don't go away. Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like those things do not
Yep.
go away. And so, no matter what situation, no matter what season you're in, no matter what that is, those gifts are there for a purpose. And there is some kind of way that you can be using them in every situation. I always say, like, start where you're at. Just start where you're at with whatever
Mhm.
you have. Like, what does God give you to show up with? And sometimes it's ability, right? Like, sometimes it's just reaching
Yep.
out to people. Sometimes it's just the gift of conversation or those kinds of gifts that we sometimes look over because we're looking at people like me, and I speak intentionally because people will look at me and they'll be like, well, I could never be a missionary. And I'm like, well, guess what? Well, I thought that I could never be a missionary either. There's still days where I was like, yesterday I had one of them days where I'm like, I just don't think I am fit for this. Like, I don't,
You made a
and
mistake, God. I don't belong here.
like, and you certainly meant to call the woman behind me in line, and it wasn't me. And
Hmm.
but there's but it's not about having the title, and it's not about having a position, and it's not about something great. And I think that's where we get stuck, is that as women, is we think that if we're not doing something great and something huge and something with a huge title, that we don't have anything to offer. And that's
Hmm.
not true. That's so not true. I mean, I just sent a woman out
Hmm.
last week to hand wash her neighbor, and the value that she provided, not only to how she felt doing something for someone else, but how she felt to that woman who she came alongside of and said, hey, help you clean some clothes. um we just saw two women like just light up last week over washing some
Uh-huh.
clothes. Honestly,
Yeah,
I think we make it too hard. We make it
we do.
too hard.
Yeah, too hard
Yeah.
and too like spiritualized. So like maybe I don't want to have a big business and make lots of money, but I need to be in full-time ministry, or I need, like there's just all these limitations we put on it. And I guess having perspective of like being that young mom who was like, no, I'm just like head down trying to keep these kids alive and do my best to grow them into healthy people and whatever. And now being, 15, 20 years down the line and being able to see like, no, my passion for them to know God personally, and my passion for them to have healthy emotional skills, and to be responsible people that could think for themselves, and like all of that I was pouring into them was all preparation for what he has me doing now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's that, like, on the one
Absolutely.
hand, we discount it and don't even want to do it, but like God's using it all. It's, like you said, that stuff is always there, and it's gonna maybe show up different in a different season, in a different setting, but it never goes away.
No, it never. And I would just say, like, at the same time, like, what did you impart to your children during those years that they're going to go out and now affect the world? Like, I think we discount
Yeah.
that as moms, and I
Yeah.
really feel like sometimes we discount our role as moms. And I'm like, that's one of the most important things you can do, because when
Hmm.
you're speaking into that, into your, they're going out then to affect others. And
Yeah.
um, I think we
Yeah, and I
sometimes
get to reap the benefits of that too. Like, yeah, my adult kids have seen
sure.
like, yeah, you're having an impact there, and you're sought after in your industry, and people respect you, and people come back to us and are like, "What did you do with your kids? Because I want
Yeah,
what you have."
yeah.
So yes, it's worth it as a mom. Like it might be hard and overwhelming, but it's worth it.
For sure, it's hard and overwhelming.
Yeah, and it might feel like all you're doing is keeping them alive, but if your heart is truly to connect with them and raise them to be who God made them to be, like there's no higher purpose to me,
No, no. I don't know
you know.
if you've ever seen, and I feel like I talk about this on every time on anybody's show, but there's this very powerful video that John Bevere put out, and it is like three different people standing before the Lord, like on Judgment Day, of being, what did you do with the souls that I called you to? And it
Mhm.
would be like, well, I was this person, and I was an accountant, and God was like, no, I called you missionary. And then the missionary was like, I was a missionary, so I did good and called you to be an accountant. And then the stay-at-home mom comes up and she's like, I didn't do anything. She's like, and she's just like bawling and sobbing, like, I didn't. And he's like, oh no, you did exactly what I asked you to do, which was to raise these children. And how many lives and how many
Mhm.
souls did these children go out and save? And it was like more than anyone else. And I always
Yeah.
just remember that, because I feel like that is such just a powerful statement of like, God's going to put you exactly where he purposes you. And if you just stay faithful in that minute, you have no idea the impact that you're going to be at. And sometimes that is just staying home to mother. That is just keeping your kids
Mhm.
alive, right? Like that is,
Yeah.
there's just so much impact in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I always clung to Susanna Wesley. Like, she's just a mom raising her kids, but a mom who loved the Lord, and, like, because she lived her faith, I mean, 2 of her sons started revivals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, Billy Graham had to have a mom. Like, I'm not sure of that story, but I'm pretty sure that his faith came through his mom,
Sure.
and, like, just other people like that that, like, yeah, the big name, but what did their mom sow into in prayer and the culture of their home and all of that so they could be who God called them to be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's not discredit that. I think it's
Mhm.
interesting because I was just praying for this session, like, Lord, what do you want me to tell these women? And he was like, release. He's like, there's no expectation
Mm.
in my kingdom. And I was like, I don't, and then I got on and I saw like the title and I'm like, I just don't know if that fits, Lord, but I guess we'll go with it. And I feel like that this is kind of what I feel like
Mhm.
this is kind of what that is about. Like
Yeah.
release the expectation that you have to be doing something amazing or great or something that's worthy to be called an impact of the kingdom, because that's not his expectation. His expectation is just that you're faithful with what he's given you right now.
Mhm. Yeah, and he said if you give somebody a drink of water, if you feed them, like he didn't say if you go start a church or if you give your life to full-time ministry or if no, he's if you treat people like people,
Right.
like
Right.
show my love to them. That's the
And
kingdom
pretty simple.
impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that release too of like, yeah, release the expectation, release the pressure, and just release the dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you want to do with him? What do
Mm-hmm.
you want to do for the kingdom? And like this is where for me like the heart healing and the mental health comes back in is whatever that dream is, all those things that come up in the way of why you can't and why that's too hard and not me and all that, that's where the healing needs to happen. So
For
you
sure.
can step into that purpose, release the pain, release the lies
For
so
sure.
that you can step into that.
You feel like I always feel like the enemy knows our purpose more than we do, right? Because I mean, I can just look at my own life, and I was like strategic in where he hit me and how he hit me, and the
Yeah.
and the and the lies
The
and the
lies
healing
that
that
he
I
planted.
needed to have in order to get here.
Hmm.
It was so strategic, and
Yeah.
I'm those are the things that keep you from your dreams, right? Those are the things that sometimes keep you from even
Mhm.
dreaming at all, right? And I that's so true. That is so true. But once you start to
Yeah.
lift that off, don't you find this, like, once you start to lift that off, then all of a sudden, like, the dreams get bigger, and you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the passion comes, just like the fire of God just comes in, and you're like,
Mhm.
look at that. And it's not, and I always like to think of it as this way, like, it's not something new. It's not new that now that you're healed, you're on fire for this, or that you have a passion for this, or you have a dream for this. That's not new. That was put in you before. It's just that
Yeah.
all of this other stuff weighed it down and covered it up, right? Like, this is not
Mhm.
new for you. Just go do it now.
Yeah.
Like, be free to go. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah, that he definitely knows where to attack and see. I just see a
I
comment. The
I
enemy
think
knows what we've been called to because the Lord announces our calling between 11 and 14 years old, which is why many of our spiritual traits start at that age. I've never heard that before. Um, oh, the thought I was having while you were talking about like those lies and how he so strategically hits you. And talking about like getting to the moms so that we can get to the kids is something I've been able to do a lot more with, because I have kids that are in their 20s and then I have a 5-year-old. So like I'm getting to do this twice. um,
Yeah.
and so seeing like the things that I've learned in those 20 years of being able to start teaching her to recognize when the enemy is lying to her and recognize that stuff so that those lies are less likely to get planted or are not going to be as strong or so far she doesn't seem to have let any stick. So but like
Amen.
being able to see like if there's one that's like, yeah, I know that one's hard for you, so I can be watching for that and I can, and so again, like if you know how to do this for yourself, if you know how to see where the enemy is lying to you and you know how that came in and those kind of things, you can teach your kids. Like it's not complicated. The kingdom of God is simple.
It is simple. And our kids
Yeah.
absorb it better than we do.
Because they
We
don't have to
sometimes
unlearn stuff.
no. They just believe it, right? Like they just believe it. They just receive it. They just receive it and they just believe it. And we should all have that childlike faith. It's just harder for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have so much to unlearn.
Yeah. I like getting to children. I love what you're doing with your daughter because I just feel like that's the goal, right? Is so that we don't have kids that grow up to have these.
Yeah, and I remember I can't remember now who the people were, but somebody was talking about like I have to do all these things with my kids and like do all this work and I see this other family that like they're not battling with this, and what the Lord had shared with them was that there was 5 generations of intentional healing and like kingdom mindset in this other family. So it's like, yeah, they don't have to deal with that stuff. Like it's the blessings that are being passed down through the generations instead of the dysfunctional cycles. So
Right.
no, they're not dealing with that.
Right.
So that vision of like, no, we can create these kingdom families that like living in the kingdom and living connected with God and making that impact is normal instead of a battle.
Right.
Like,
Right.
how incredible is that?
And it's amazing to have those examples, right? Like that we're all reaching towards. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to know it's like, oh, not here's another generation of struggle. Here's, of like, okay, like you're gonna have struggles, but here's all the stuff I've accomplished. So
Right.
you can walk in this and then you can go do your own battles instead of coming back and redoing mine.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Which is, yeah, that's where that passion for healing comes in of like, no, like get it healed and pass it on to them so they don't have to fight the same battles all
That's
over
the
again.
generational change, right? Like we talk a lot in our ministry about generational change, and that's it, right? Like when this generation learns to do it differently, then they pass something down to the next one and the next one and the next one. Yeah. Which is so
Yeah,
beautiful.
so awesome. Yeah. So, um, I don't know, just more like when you're working in the village, are you just kind of there and they can connect with you, or do you have ways that you're reaching out or?
So we have an actual center. It's a center building, and then I have a separate house on the same kind of fenced in area for security. And so
Mhm.
we have programs here. So like this afternoon, we have kids coming in this afternoon for a large group program. So we have some kid programs that way. And then we've shifted in the last few months, and we're shifting away from the large group kids programs and more into small groups and one-on-one, because I just see so much more fruit from that, where when you really get to, not that I didn't know them before, but there's just something more dynamic about having time with kids versus having we our program outgrew us is what happened. We started with like 20 children, and we doubled that size. And when I have 40 kids running around here, like you just can't, like you're just chaos, to be honest. Like so
Mhm.
installing the kind of things that we wanted to install in them was just harder. We've switched to doing more small group, and so we'll have probably 4 different small group things happening this week here too. And then I have an intern here in some education. We have some kids who do not go to school, like they're 7 to 12 years old and have never gone to school, and that just happens, right? And so we're doing some education with them just so they learn some basics. And then besides that, we do go out into the community, and we're shifting into some new programs. So we're kind of between some things, but that's our goal is to be doing a lot more community prayer with people, and being out in the community and doing also we do some small provisions and things like that. I am out in the community every day, almost every day, intentionally in our community to pray. And I always I'm always like, Lord, who needs to see me today? Put them in my path, right? And so I run into a lot of people that have to just talk or just to need something. But we in the last couple months, um, I really, Lord, like really digging into like the programs and what we're doing and what that looks like. And he was really just very clear with me about like, you don't have to seek people. I'm going to put people in your path that need what you have. Like, and
Mhm.
so I have a very small group really of women who seek me out. And so I pour into their lives on an individual basis. We're hoping to start now with this intern here that can translate, because my Spanish is not wonderful. We're hoping to run some more women's groups to just empower and to really do a few more with just short, smaller, also just worship and prayer with them and praying over them and really teaching them what the Spirit feels like and really leaning into that. Because I would say at least half of those women are not church going women. And so there's a bridge to kind of also just the religion versus religion, something that's been hard. So
Yeah.
I feel like we do a lot of things, but what we really do is we just lean onto the Lord and say, Lord, what do you have for us today? Like put whatever. I just got done meeting this morning with our intern, and we're like, set out kind of the loose schedule for the week. But at the same time, I really had to instill in her that like this can change at any moment, because here's the deal: every day we wake up and we say, Lord, what do you want us to do? And who touch, and what does that look like? And then people show up at my gate, and we don't turn them away because we have structure and schedule. We say, Lord, what is it that you want for these people to have today? And so there's just a lot of beautiful opportunities that come up from that. And again,
Mhm.
that was a lot about me learning to release the expectation that I had to be doing this and I had to be doing that and I had to have something planned every day to, and not only
Mhm.
for me but people in the community. I took a lot of heat from people in the community who really, my place was to run programs, and if I wasn't running programs, I
Mm.
wasn't doing anything. And and we're slowly introducing them to the understanding that the Lord provides. I just have to show up with an open heart, right, and a
Mhm.
willing spirit to do what He says. And so that's what we do every day. So I don't know if that. I feel like I talked around again,
No, I
but
think that was great. And I love it because like here you are a full-time missionary and what you do is exactly what every mom can do, whether she's working or stay at home or whatever. Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do today? Put the people in front of me that you want to impact. Let me know how you want me to work with them. Like whether that's
absolutely,
the children that are in your house or the neighbor kids that come over or the coworkers or the clients or whatever, like that's how you make an impact is by walking in step with the Spirit. To
yeah,
be able to just go, okay, what are you doing? Where do you want me? And that rest and flow and freedom that comes with that, because I'm not producing anything. I'm just doing what he says, and he's going to work it all together into what he's making.
for sure. And that's what we
Yeah.
found, right? Is that we were running beautiful programs and having tons of kids, and we were making such a great impact. impact. And at the same time, it became something that felt like it was just an obligation. We just went through the motions. And yeah, kids were getting great. And I wouldn't say that our programs weren't touching people. We were having an impact and things were happening, but we were going through it was no longer about God, really. It was about me. It was about us showing up and running programs.
Meeting
And
people's
expectations. That's when I was like, we're not
which
doing that
hit me
anymore.
as a young mom too, that I was living in that season of probably not quite as fully, but just a place of trying to be in that place of God, what do you have for me today? And where are we supposed to show up and what are we doing? And there was a lot of pressure even from church because I wasn't doing the programs and I wasn't in the things. And it's that's not what he's called me to in this season. So I'm sorry you don't have enough people for your nursery or your children's church, or he's called me to my kids. And that's what this looks like in this season. I don't have the time or energy for your program. And so that just reminded me of that when you're saying yeah, the community wasn't happy that I'm not providing these programs and they can count on these things. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to serve, but only in the way that God tells me to.
And we used to partner with a church here in our community, and I still have a very good relationship with the pastors. I still sow into them. When God asked me to show up to their services, I go. I still pray for all of them. I have had to learn to set that boundary with them and literally step out of their church and because it was interfering with me doing what my assignment. Like all of this other drama and expectation and dynamic things and some of that is cultural, right? Because they have a different understanding than I do, and so we had an extra layer of that
Yeah.
we had to go through, and but I had to honestly just and I just did this in the last few months when I was like, hey, I'm stepping back, I'm stepping away, I'm putting boundaries up. I don't know that this will be for this drama and expectation and hard conversations about things that aren't really going anywhere was distracting me from actually doing the things that I was called to do, right? Like it was getting in the way of what I was literally called here to do. And learn to set that boundary. That was super hard for me. That was super hard to go to the church and say, I'm not coming back. I will come back on the days that the Lord asked me to come. Otherwise I'm not. I will continue to sow and I continue to pray for you and I continue to believe in you and your purpose in this community. But we can't partner together anymore, and I can't be here with these conversations anymore because it actually is not in your best interest for me to do that. So that has been a really hard season here with that dynamic happening. But personal growth and the growth in our ministry, because I took that step, has been exponential. When you stay faithful to really not allowing the distractions for what you're really called to, that's an obedience and a faithfulness to God that he honors. Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. It's great to talk to you.
Sure. Can I just share one more thing? I promise I will be brief. But we were talking about just flowing with the Lord and what I do every day. I just felt really urgently also to say I have 2 days a week that I take as rest days, and I do not answer my gate. And I do not, because I live in the village in which I minister, right? And so people are always here. And it's always no matter what I do, it's not Brenda, it's my ministry I'm representing, right? And so there's a lot of extra pressure that way. Every week I take 2 days in which I do not answer my gate, and I do not normally, unless there's a really urgent prayer need, I do not interact with people intentionally because I need to refuel. And so I just felt like the Lord called me to make sure that I say that to moms, especially that you
Mhm.
are enough to take the time to refuel, and it actually makes it all work better, right? Like that's the
Mhm.
I couldn't continue to do what I do if I didn't take that rest time, if I didn't refuel and recharge and do that. And I think that that is something that as moms we often put on the back burner. But that's the I think that
Mhm.
actually allows us to accomplish the things that the Lord's calling us to do.
So aside from taking the break and not answering the calls, so you're not doing the work, what do you do to actually refuel?
I listen to a ton of teachings. I'm forever on a ton of teachings. And I just do every day. I try to do a little of that, and I do the prayer in the community, and then I do worship and prayer or read that. I do a little every day, but those days I do way more of all of that, and intentionally do that because sometimes I'll be like I'm too tired to do that, and I'm like no no no, this is what you need to do. But I do rest. Also, like physical rest. If I want in the afternoon, girl, I'm taking a nap in the afternoon. Like that is just what I do. And I also try to limit my social media during those times because I just know for me that social media is one of those things that can get my head spinning away from my heart. And so I those are the things that work for me to refuel. But I think everyone I try to get out in nature. So I there's a few restaurants that are up in the mountains where things are like that. So I will go to and things like that. But usually I honestly I ask myself and I'm like, what do you need? Sometimes it's a meal. Sometimes it's like just a good meal, honestly. Sometimes it's a nap. Sometimes it's a I just really have to ask myself like what is it that you're needing? How do you need to refuel? And I just feel like our spirit and our body knows the answer to that usually, you know.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have to call and talk to my mom. Sometimes I have to call and talk to my daughter. You know, like sometimes I need to connect
Yeah.
back to home. Um, sometimes I need to do some personal deliverance. Sometimes, I mean, it all just depends on what's happening and going on. But yeah,
Yeah, I love that permission to just ask yourself. Or if you feel like you ask yourself and you don't get an answer, ask the Lord, what do I need?
for sure. He knows. And so he has like, and sometimes I'll say, Lord, do you have a treat for me today? Like a treat, like, is there something special that you want for me to have or to do today? You know what I mean? And then I'll kind of hear from him. Yeah, take yourself to that restaurant, like that, your favorite, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'll be like, yeah, I do deserve that. I'm like, I do deserve
I
that.
love it.
So,
I love it, I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, so beautiful, so good to connect with your heart for healing women, for seeing women rise up into what God has called them to, and yeah, is that his women are valuable, whether they live here or in another country. They're still his
absolutely.
daughters. He still loves them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for. I have
Yeah,
loved
you're
talking.
welcome.
I feel like we share that same. I always love talking to people that I'm like, she speaks my language.
Yeah, it's always refreshing. Always good of like, yes, I'm not in this alone. Somebody else understands this and they're working on this too.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much and bless you. And I guess I'll get information from you to post for how people can follow what you're doing in your ministry and learn more about that. And then are you still doing any coaching and stuff while you're doing the ministry, or is it just ministry?
I'm not. I have a couple coaches. I have a couple coaches that I partner with that contract with me for help with their clients once in a while.
Okay.
But nothing routinely right now. I don't. I do have. I mean, I have a ton of resources though that sit there on the shelf. Happy to share that with them. And on our website, I have some that I have done on like identity and purpose, trauma, those kinds of. Anyone can access those. have an entire site of like just because I use them in coaching and I don't coach anymore.
Mhm.
But that's down right now. But I'm happy to share that with people, anyone,
Okay.
honestly. So
Yeah. So we'll get that information posted so people can access that if they want and follow what you're doing in your ministry and be part of making an impact from right
for
at
sure,
home.
absolutely. Aw, thank you so
All right.
much.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Goodbye.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you later. Bye.